Hello, everyone. You're listening to the Small Business Shows. I'm your host, Swire, the promo guy. My guest today is Ted Lau. He's the CEO of Ballistic Art. Ted has founded a company in 2002, and Ballistic Art is a high-touch award-winning lead generation digital marketing agency that focuses on online lead generation and brand awareness for North America's best-known brand, B2B professional service providing companies, and membership-based association. Ballistic Art has full division in lead generation, digital marketing, graphic design, video production, and web development. How you doing, Ted?
I'm good, Swire. How are you?
Good. I first want to congratulations. It's your 20th years for Ballistic Art, so that
Yeah,
must
yeah.
be you must be really proud.
Well, absolutely, and thank you for inviting me on the show. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, 20 years is kind of a blink of an eye, and also a bit of a lifetime ago. I started Ballistic Arts, which is my agency, in the room above my parents' garage in 2002, and we started as a video production company well before YouTube and Facebook and stuff like that. And then we kind of slowly merged and grew and got into graphic design work and got into web development. And then we got into real estate development marketing for about a decade. And then the last few years, we've really grown our work into lead generation digital marketing, where we help business to business, high niche companies grow their leads, get business, and grow their bottom line.
You think when you first started up until the way that we are now, has it changed a lot, or it's just different platform that we use, but then the concept you'd say it remains similar to what you have started before?
That's a good question. I also host a podcast and with a lot of marketers, and I ask them the same question. And I've never actually had that question posed to me, but I think a lot of things have changed, but a lot of things have stayed the same. I studied communications in my day in post secondary, and there's a scholar who's long gone named Marshall McLuhan, and he had a saying: "The medium is the message." And I think, yeah, absolutely. The medium has changed a lot, right? When I first started, Google, I think, had just started. YouTube didn't even exist. Facebook didn't exist. And so the type of marketing that we did was, create videos on VHS tapes. For the listeners and the viewers that are younger, VHS tapes are these rectangular black things that you put into a thing called a VCR, and it would play videos. And websites didn't really exist and whatnot. But in terms, so all the things that changed, right? So we went from standard definition video to now we're at 4K video. Websites, we used to hard code websites in HTML, and then it went to Flash, and now there's all sorts of CSS and all that kind of stuff that we have, obviously. And then social media has really taken it by storm, where our team is growing our TikTok type of skill set so that we can help our clients grow as the new platforms come on. So the mediums have changed, but I think how people consume their marketing and what really matters to them really hasn't changed, right? Ultimately, at the end of the day, we're still speaking to people, and people want to be valued, and they want to know that that the brands that they support align with their own values. I think a lot of that has come to the forefront in today's day and age, but I think the successes of way back when was very similar. It's just how we deliver that message is a little bit different.
Yeah, I always tell my son, who likes to play video games, I told him that if I'm born right now, I'll probably be a streamer playing games every day.
Mhm.
Usually my mom
Absolutely.
said, if you don't play games and you don't get good grades, and you're going to be nobody. But then now, obviously, you can just snap, say, you know how much these streamers, makes a year.
Oh yeah, and it's really funny because that you say that. I remember, I started a video production company because I watched a ton of television. Right, growing up in the suburbs, my dad comes home and he's always like, "Why are you just sitting on the couch watching TV?" And yeah, a lot of it was just brain kind of mush kind of television. But as I started understanding really what makes a difference between great storytelling and regular storytelling, that really helped me with my development as a marketer. And so, for those young parents out there that have kids that are playing video games that are streaming all the time, I wouldn't actually discourage them all that much, because who knows what the future holds with NFT and the metaverse and all that kind of stuff, there's tons of people making a ton of money being, Twitch streamers, YouTubers, influencers. So you never know.
I think it's not easy. It's not just, you play games and you put a camera in front of you and then people are going to watch. It's very competitive out there. So it's actually, the amount of work, you got to be good, playing games, and you got to be funny or watchable. It's not just, it's easy to start, right? But then it's really difficult to build the audience. Just like, when we have a business, you can start a business anytime, anywhere, but then are you able to find the product and services that people will go after, and can you sustain your business? So which brings me to a different question. I think you'll be the perfect person to ask. You said that empathy leadership is more important than ever today, and since you have been through some ups and downs, I can tell from 2002 up until 2022 you have seen things happen. So why do you say that, and why do you think that empathy leadership is more important today?
Well, I think that's been a journey for me for some time in terms of empathy leadership. I come from an immigrant family where hugs and kisses might be a far to few and far between, harder to come by, and that kind of tough love situation was a very, very common scenario in my life. And the type of leaders that I saw and the kind of business people that I knew were very much, was it shape up or ship out, right? That was the saying. And I found that as the millennials came on, and I'm technically an elder millennial, but as our generation came on, there was a lot of older leaders that were complaining, oh, millennials are so soft and feely and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, really, what mattered was you were dealing with a human being, and you're there even as a leader to serve them, to really help them grow their careers, help them grow as human beings. And I found that being vulnerable and really trying to understand the other person's shoes, where they are at, and meeting them where they are at, is much more powerful and effective when it comes to leadership, when it comes to inspiring people, because people know what they want or where they want to go. Maybe they don't explicitly tell you, or maybe even they inside don't exactly know, but everyone has a little compass and a meter. And if you're able to tap into that, that's really, really crucial. And I think the first step in doing that is a lot of self-exploration. I had to learn a lot of self-compassion and a lot of vulnerability and acceptance of like where I'm at and what I can control and what I cannot. I think as entrepreneurs, we are, kind of on our own, and we have to do and fend for ourselves as best as we can. And a lot of the times when we fail, at least I remember for myself, it was very much like everything was my fault. Everything was on my shoulders. There's lots of pressure that I would give myself, and it was kind of really unnecessary. I come across a lot of leaders that would ask me, without, being hard on yourself, how are you going to motivate yourself to grow, so to speak? And I have found that by giving myself a little bit more space to go, you know what, at the end of the day, these are the things I can control. These are the things I cannot. And recognizing the difference and recognizing the fact that, we're all just human beings trying to make a go of it. It actually gave me that little gap between stimulus and reaction. I think Viktor Frankl says this. And that gives you a lot of power in terms of what you can do next. And that, starting there with who I was, allowed me to show authentic vulnerability to my team, and then be able then to connect with them on a more human and compassionate level. And I think that has really helped in this day and age, especially with the Great Resignation and people coming and going in your agency or your business. There's really not much that we can do about it. But what we can do is, in the moment, be present with those human beings and work together for something better, for ultimately for our clients and the planet.
Yeah, I think you touched on a lot of good points. For example, we started our conversation of, what has changed in terms of technology, right? The platform that we can use to market ourselves, but then the deep concept, the fundamental is still the same. So as a business owner, now you're in you have all the experience, right? But then there got to be a point that you don't understand the new technology, or there might be someone out there who are better at those technology than you are. But then, think about that. Instead of fighting them and try to control them, micromanaging them, the concept is still the same. For those people who might be good at doing one thing, might actually look out to you as a more seasoned professional for your experience, because the wisdom never change, and you can only get more wisdom as you get older, I guess.
Well,
uh,
that's the hope that, get more wisdom. But I don't know. I've been told that more gray hairs mean more wisdom, but sometimes I think more gray hairs just mean, a little too much stress, and you gotta take a step back and breathe. Um, Sorry to interrupt you, but I did, note your point about, getting a little bit maybe stressed or micromanagey when you have folks that are coming on your team that might have better skill sets than you. And I actually very early on learned that I can't do everything.
mhm.
And when we started, we did everything, right? I was the I think a lot of people when they start their business, you joke, I'm the bottle washer, the chief bottle washer, the janitor, or whatever, the accountant, and I did all of it. I didn't obviously wash bottles. We didn't have any bottles. I didn't really do janitorial. Actually, I did do some janitorial stuff because we have an office. But in terms of the video and the website, I would program. I would send out the receipts and follow up on invoices, and then I would go film and shoot photography and all this kind of stuff. And when I was able to start letting go, one of my mentors had said, Ted, surround yourselves with people that are smarter than you. At first I thought, this is crazy. This guy is, makes at least seven figures, and why would he say that? Like anyone around him is making substantially less, but it's not measured in dollars. Sometimes it's measured in skill set. And so, he has a particular skill set that he was able to lead a very large, billion-dollar asset managed company. And he has that, but he doesn't have the skill sets where he can, maybe do HR. Maybe he's not the best HR guy or the best marketing person or the best finance person or the best, inventory, facility management, whatever you insert. And I think that's what I started to realize. It took a long time because I did feel a little bit, threatened. Like, oh man, this person's actually better skilled than me. Like, what if he goes off and becomes my competitor? And I think a lot of small business people think that way. But ultimately, most people in the world don't actually want to be a small business owner. It's a lot of stress, right? They just want to get a job, get a paycheck, do what they love to do. And when I started to realize that I could provide an environment where people with talent, creative people, can thrive and grow their careers, that kind of made me feel a lot more at ease and gave me a lot more breathing room to kind of just try different things and whatnot, because I don't have to understand every little thing. I haven't programmed a website since 2005, but we do websites. I'm not even personally all that much on social media. I don't live on TikTok yet. We run a digital marketing agency, and I just trust a really good team, and away we go.
I think as a good entrepreneur, you create the environment that would attract the talent to come work for you. Like, it's not you have to be the smartest one in the room. I would trade any time for the smartest talent working for you. You could just know where to find them, attract them, and make sure that their needs are met. So there are actually, because people have options now. I see how many contacts that I have on LinkedIn change jobs for the past 2 years. So there must be a special ways to keep it to them, and it's your job as the business owner, the entrepreneur, to provide the environment that they're looking for.
I think so, and ultimately, we do it as small business owners because I don't know. I joke, kind of half joke, that I'm certifiably unemployable. I've been doing this 20 years. This is really all I know, other than some co-op job that I had done through my university days. This was really my full-time gig ever since I got out of school. And you as entrepreneurs, we get to say how the environment goes. We get to say this is what we want because ultimately we build that environment. And if you're able to build an environment, or at least I found that if I've been able to build an environment where I'm not so stressed and I'm not crazy and pulling out my hair, then I think that bodes well with the environment that we have with our team. Now, given, it's a global economy now, and talent can be poached and taken from anywhere in the world. It's become very, very competitive for small business owners like you and I to retain good talent. And I think that continues to be probably for the next few years the biggest challenge that we're all going to see. And so for me, it's not really about, and I know how they said, get the foosball table in the shower. Like, we all work from home, so there's no foosball table, and hopefully they just use their own showers. But ultimately, it's about whether or not we're able to help them get to where they want to go. And even if it's for a shorter amount of time, I think that's okay. And we've just had to learn to start building different channels for labor, be it maybe some contractor backfilling work, learning how to fill our bench a bit more, finding fun different incentives while everyone's still working from home. There's a lot of different things that we can still learn and grow as a small company, and we continue to do that.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect lead on to my question. And you wrote that on the notes that you sent me. I looked at it for a little while and I said, did he really say that? So you said no one knows what the hell they're doing, and that's okay.
It's true. I mean, did anybody predict a global pandemic? And we could all put bets onto how many shots we're going to get, how many variants. We have no idea, right? And all we can really control is the present moment and what we have at our disposal, what we can control. And so I half jokingly said, no one knows what the hell they're doing, because I've been doing this 20 years, run my own show, I've grown a team of about 20 folks. It's a small 7-figure kind of business, and it does its thing. But ultimately, you can plan. Was there's a saying? Was it God? No, man plans and God laughs, right? Because how many times have you done? Because I know I've done 3-year goals, 10-year goals, 6-month goals, 30-day goals, right? Like we will do, and we still have our goals. Like, don't get me wrong. We set annual goals, and then we break it down by every quarter we have goals, and then every month we have those goals. And things change, right? Like, I've had people where I thought would never leave the agency because they've said, I will never leave the agency. And then they go off and get an opportunity where, they can't pass it up. And so you've planned all the stuff around them and their growth and their career and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, life happens. And so I think that's okay. I think a lot of the times, at least for myself, I used to in the past put myself down and just go, oh my gosh, I spent all this time and energy and all that kind of, but that's not really going to help. It is what it is. I think a lot of sports people say this, right? It is what it is. And I'm a big New England Patriots fan, and Bill Belichick is famous for saying, we're on to Cincinnati. And so the idea, and this, for those of you who don't actually watch football, the New England Patriots at the time had just got pummeled by a team. I think it was the Kansas City Chiefs, and everyone's like, oh, the Belichick Brady era is over. And this was like 3 or 4 years before Brady moved to Tampa. And Belichick was just like, nope. People were asking like, oh, is this over? Is this over? Is the party over? And blah, blah, what do you guys do? And he's like, every question to every question was, we're on to Kansas City. Or sorry, we're on to Cincinnati. We're on to Cincinnati. The next game, the next thing. So when I say we don't know what the hell we're doing, it just basically means is like, well, I think we all can plan and as much as we can, but ultimately life will happen, and it's how you react and what do you do next. What can you do within our control? I think that's really the key that I've learned moving forward.
Yeah, I want to point out an example, and both my kids are in scouts, right? So they have us put together an emergency kit in case of fire, gas leak, earthquake, whatever. No one has prepared us to buy toilet paper in our emergency kit. And I remember when the pandemic started, like, there's no toilet paper. Like, we have to drive so far and almost back for toilet paper. So I think putting that into an entrepreneur's perspective, we can be prepared, we could be ready, but then sometimes it just things throw at us that, we have to respond. And I think what separates the good and the bad entrepreneur is, how well they prepare, how well do they really know their craft. So, we have to face the changes that come through us every day. Are we able to adapt? Are we able to accept that these are the situation? I think for the past couple of years, there are people who are embracing the change. they're doing pretty well. But then there are some of us that refuse to make the changes. So those are people usually are kind of struggling, or can pivot. People use that word a lot, to pivot with the situation that are around us right now.
Yeah, I think a couple things I'd add to that point is one, embracing change and accepting the situation. This is something that I would resist. I had this very weird way of thinking in my younger days where I thought I could control everything, manifest destiny and that kind of stuff. And while, some of that, there's some truth in that, really ultimately where I found peace is being able to accept the situation. And some people would call it embracing the suck. I don't even like to use that part of it, right? The negative connotation, just accepting where the moment is. And then from there, understanding what we can do and go from there. I think the second point that I want to bring up is your note about preparation. So on my podcast, Marketing News Canada, which you can find on everywhere you can get podcasts, Spotify and Apple and whatnot. One of the highlights of my podcast hosting career so far was interviewing an astronaut, a very famous Canadian astronaut by the name of Chris Hadfield. He's a kind of award-winning book writer. He's written a fiction book and a bunch of nonfiction books as well. And so one of his nonfiction books that he wrote was an autobiography called The Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth. And the big thing that he talked about is preparation. That, and they would prepare, because when you go in space, like all these things can happen. Like space out there is out to kill you. Human beings cannot survive in space. And so they would have these exercises at NASA to basically create and figure out all these different ways of things that could go wrong. And they would prep and drill for it. Now, when I asked him, like, well, I can't prepare every single thing that could possibly do that. Like, that would drive me nuts. And he's like, well, then play the odds. Figure out what is probably the most likely thing that will happen and prep for that. And then so when that inevitably may happen, maybe it won't, great. But if it does, you'll have a game plan. And, he just did a very simple thing. Like, how many people do fire drills at home? And he asked me, Ted, do you do fire? I'm like, oh, no, right? I did fire drills at school, but I didn't do it at home. And so he invited me to consider doing that. And that weekend we did it. And now we know where the fire extinguishers are, know what to do, where we would meet as a family, and so that we would be safe. And I thought that was really interesting. And so I've been thinking about, things that could inevitably, quote unquote, go wrong, in the business, and things that, for instance, the new year, lots of people decide that they want to change careers or do something different. And when you have a business where your inventory are your people, right? Like that's a very crass way of saying it, but that where your resources, your efforts, what you're selling ultimately as a business is time and people's time. When those people go, well, what do you do? And so we have to create a better game plan so that when things like that happen, we're prepared for it. And so we're slowly doing it. It's not perfect, and we'll keep iterating and iterating. And I think take it from the astronaut, Chris Hadfield. You can find him on, I think, chrishadfield.ca.
Great. So Ted, I think I have to ask you this question, for you to be on the show. You have your own podcast. You talk to a lot of great, smart people. What do you see the trend in marketing, and what should we watch out for as a small business professional?
Yeah, absolutely. So a little plug here is on January 26th, next Wednesday. I think it's 26th. Let me just pull up the calendar. I just can't believe I screwed that up. Yeah, so January 26th, Wednesday, January 26th, I'm speaking to the Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce on, top 10 tips on how, small business owners can do it themselves on digital marketing to drive leads. And so some of the, tips that I'll be talking about are things like, how to create better online word of mouth. So a lot of small business owners, especially the business to business type business owners, are always like, wow. And it's, it's been 2 years since the pandemic started almost. And a lot of business to business guys are still like, no, I get my business by, my contacts and my network and all that kind of stuff. Well, how has it worked for you over COVID? Is that really, like, there's no networking events. So where are you going to meet people? And so we've started helping our clients build online word of mouth. So for those that haven't done that, I'll give some tips on like some suggestions, right? So like just consider 93% of consumers on the internet, find a local business last year. Like 93%, right? Most of these industries were like restaurants, hotels, medical, automotive, and clothing. But you got to think like as a business to business owner, you might also need that because people, I think it said 73% of consumers only pay attention to reviews written in the last month, and 48 of them will only consider using a business with 4 or more stars, right? So you gotta think like, okay, well, how can I improve my online word of mouth? So things like Google My Business, like that is super easy. If you don't have Google created for your business, like a Google My Business, go on Google, like they'll show you how to do it. It's super easy, and start getting really your top clients, the people that love you, that you've emotionally, gotten a response from your service, your product. Get those people to review you. And then if you're an industry specific area, go find the Yelp of your industry. There's going to be one. There's like House for home builders. There's Clutch for agency owners like myself, where you can just go online and get people to review you and get better ratings, because those platforms will always have better SEO and better organic than you will. So if you can get on there and get better reviews, that is one way to build really good online word of mouth. 2 other things I would talk about is email marketing. Email's not dead. And I actually thought, oh man, spam and all this kind of stuff, email is dead and all this kind of stuff. And email is not actually dead, because if you think about a few years ago, when there was all that anti-spam legislation that came out where we were trying to block spammers, and a lot of small businesses were like, well, how are we supposed to grow? But actually it ended up helping small businesses, because now you have an actual database that is yours. If you think about all the platforms that we try to market on, Facebook, TikTok, Google, Twitter, the big data that you tap into is not yours, right? The big data that you tap into is another platforms that you pay to play, right? That's the term, pay to play. But if you think about your own database, that's your database to do with, to trick out, to, segment, whatever you need to do. And if you can protect that well, and you can create really great information that resonates to your audience emotionally, not something that's like, oh, we won an award, look at us, we're so awesome. Don't talk about things that are great for your business. Talk about things that will actually help your customer, your client. And that is really what you want to you want to focus on. Email isn't dead. And probably the last thing that I'll put in, because I don't want to give everything away, is try some new things like chatbots, something as easy as chatbots, right? That way it's like there was a stat out there, I'm not going to share it right now, but there was a stat that basically says that most people, millennials and younger, would prefer to talk to a chatbot than a human being, right? Because if you and I lost a package with FedEx. Okay. Now, FedEx is probably a bad example because their chatbot was just as bad as their human being, but their human being was pretty bad. Sorry, FedEx, if you improved your service, I went, ride you like this, but it was very frustrating, right? And so I finally got my thing. The driver was actually super nice, but the actual service of interacting of where my package is was really frustrating. And so if you're able to have a chatbot that would move through some of your service, one, it'll reduce the resources on your time, but 2, it might help on the marketing side, because it will build a really better brand experience.
Okay. So definitely everyone check out the Ted's event at the LA Chamber. It's next Wednesday at the 26th. So Ted, if the listener has specific question wanted to ask you, what is the best way to reach out to you?
Well, you know what? LinkedIn is a really good way of reaching out to me. Also, my website, ballisticarts.com. Check us out there. We have a lot of blog information and all that kind of stuff. You can also listen to me as I co-host on Marketing News Canada. You can find that on Apple, Spotify, wherever. And you can always check me out with Swire. He knows where I am too, so you could always reach out to him and get to me that way.
Thank you so much, Ted. Love the conversation that we're having, and looking forward to your webinar next week.
Yeah, absolutely, Swire. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. And if I can say anything to any tips that I would give to small business owners is that what, ultimately we are the backbone of the economy, the global economy. So keep your head up. Not every day is going to be that sucky, and some days are going to actually be pretty good. So keep it up.
Thank you.
Thanks, Swire.